The Guardians, Path of Ascension, by Bruce R.F. Chapter 11, Playtime. At about the same time Sergeant Denow and Private Clater are arriving to make their unfortunate discovery, Seldin and the rest are preparing to make their move at good old Area 51. The 6 by 10 mile rectangular-shaped base sits just southwest of the Nevada Salt Flats, otherwise known as Groom Lake. Known for its reputation, the facility is a powerhouse of rumors and frequently bombarded with suspicions of popular tripe. Even so, this relatively small detachment of Edwards Air Force Base is believed to be home to some of the most top-secret experimental aircraft in the United States. That being the case, it is kept under heavy guard. "Colonel Mitchell," the young female officer calls out, for there's a blip on one of her screens. Mitchell, the officer in charge, snaps his attention to her. With 12 people manning the control room, he has a lot to be focused on. "What is it, Lieutenant?" he quickly asks of Second Lieutenant Andrews as he steps up from behind to review the 3 monitors of her section. "Sir, I'm getting some very unusual ground-level readings. Electromagnetic field levels have just peaked, and our microwave sensors are going crazy," she says. He casually strokes his beard, troubled by the readouts. "Anything on radar?" "No, sir. Nothing in the air. But the electron spectrometer is picking up 5 very high energy signatures approaching from the south. EMF readings are literally off the charts." Colonel Mitchell turns about to address one of the changeover officers, preparing to leave duty. "Major Pierce," he calls out. "Colonel?" Pierce looks over. "What exactly was in Deacon's report last night?" the colonel requests. "One of our test drones encountered an unidentified entity," he replies. "Do any of these readings mean a thing to you?" Mitchell asks. Major Pierce walks over. "That's impossible," he comments. "What is?" his commander responds. "Well, last night there was only one of these things. Now it appears there are 5. Lieutenant, switch to gamma emissions," he instructs her, and she quickly accesses the terminal to bring up the appropriate screen. "Jesus," Mitchell lets out. "Have you ever seen anything like this?" Major Pierce nods. "Yes, last night. There, do you see this spike? The big one right there. The radiation levels match what Captain Deacons had reported. Whatever it is, stock one of our spheres and defuse its countermeasures," he states. Mitchell turns his attention back to the lieutenant. "Do we have cameras on that grid?" he asks. "Yes, sir," she nods. "Bring it up. I want to see these entities," he instructs. "You've got it," she answers, flipping a switch. Right then, the lights dim as static shrieks over the radios and fills their monitors. Simon slowly opens his eyes while withdrawing a hand, poised with his forefingers and thumb, from his temple. "It's done," he says, looking to his friends. "Good. Let's move," Seldin says with a nod toward the main gate. The guards appear distracted, fiddling with their radios as the team approaches. "Halt! This is a restricted area!" one shouts, catching sight of the quintet as the other guard readies his rifle. "Do not come any closer or I'm authorized to open." "Shh!" Almir points. The 2 soldiers drop cold, and the group turns an odd gaze toward him. He shrugs. "I can influence people's minds," he admits. "I like this guy," Seldin thumbs, before glancing to Leon. "I thought you were training another Guardian of Earth. Since when did we get a Guardian of the Mind?" he asks, though truly impressed by the feat. Leon just shrugs as they continue onward, scanning the area, just as he knows Seldin is doing. Although the human body puts out about 100 joules of unfocused energy a day, or 1.16 millijoules per second, the aura can be misleading. Therefore, it is the core, the ether-gathering center of every being, that really matters. Simon takes these values seriously, running the numbers to gauge the strength of his enemies and his crew. His friends seem to be getting stronger by the day, especially Seldin, whose aura appears to be giving off over 170 kilojoules per second, nearly twice his own, and 10 times what he had calculated 2 nights ago. "Is that his baseline?" Simon wonders, before calling out. "Yo, Sai!" "Yeah?" Seldin glances back at his friend, who moves up beside him. "What do you think the odds are we'll run into wielders like us out here?" he asks. "Doubtful. I'm not sensing a single aligned system," Seldin replies. Well, the resting energy in a person's aura is what? 1/3 of their core on average, right?" Simon asks. "Yeah, so?" Seldin questions, for he should know this stuff. It's textbook. "So that puts the average soldier here at what? 100, maybe 150 joules?" Simon inquires. Sighing, Seldin upturns a hand. "Simi, that won't matter if their cores aren't." He senses something. "I feel a large group gathering over there." He points to the west end of the compound. "Jasra, what's the best way inside?" He turns to her. Jasra shimmers, briefly blurring from view for just a second, when a sudden sense of vertigo brings her back, causing her to teeter. "Oh," she places a hand to her temple. "Something's wrong. I can't sense past there." She points westward. Seldin focuses that way, picking up on a strange shift in the ether as well. "Then that's where we'll go," he says. Jasra groans as she rubs her forehead. They're gonna attempt to flank us. We should enter over there." She points to a set of reinforced compound doors on the west entrance. Seldin then nods to Simon, who steps up before waving a hand over the keypad. It beeps as the red light on the panel switches to green. There's a shriek of a large lock unbolting, and the gang steps inside to a darkened corridor. Need more light? Simon asks playfully, stimulating only what is needed to brighten their path. Simi, you didn't happen to pull up a map while you were in their computer, did you? Seldin asks. Simon lets out a soft chuckle. This isn't a video game, Si. Nobody keeps blueprints of top-secret facilities on file, he rebuts.
Corridor.
Jasra points left. Leon, Seldin calls out, when suddenly a wall of earth rises to block the path of the incoming troops. Thank you, Seldin says. Hold it right there, shouts another group of soldiers from up ahead.
We should take the stairs,
Jasra suggests, while making a sharp right into the stairwell, just as another stone wall moves into place, blocking the shots fired. How far down? Seldin asks her.
2 floors. The engineering section is just below, and from there is almost a clear path to,
She wobbles. Back in the control room, Colonel Mitchell's frustration is hitting its boiling point. The radios are still gurgling, while the monitors remain on the fritz. Edwards Air Force Base, this is Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell from Groom Lake. We are under siege. Do you copy? He shouts, only hearing static. Adjusting the frequency, he tries again. Edwards Air Force Base, this is Colonel Mitchell. Do you copy? Damn! He throws the microphone, turning about. All right, people, we're under attack and flying blind. Let's move. Gorman, shouts the colonel. First Lieutenant Gorman snaps to attention. Yes, sir. Grab some men and get the generators back on. I want this base operational pronto. Yes, sir. Major Pierce, Mitchell yells. Colonel, Pierce shouts back. Get down to the barracks and wake up Deacons. He's the only one who's seen these things up close, says the colonel. Yes, sir. Pierce steps away. Oh, and Major, ready the mechs, Mitchell adds. Sir? Pierce questions the order. Major, it's obvious whatever's hitting us scouted us last night. It's disabled our power, our alert systems, and our communications. We need tactics, and the mechs may just give us the advantage. But sir, deploying them on our own compound... Pierce seems genuinely concerned, for the mechanical chassis and harness system is essentially the ground unit designed to complement the spheres. Certainly the colonel has overestimated the need, he believes. That's an order, Major. I want you on the ground and Deacons in the air. There's only one place they could be headed, and I want a nice surprise waiting for them. Understood, sir. Ding! The security panel chimes, granting access to the engineering section. Simon pushes through the glass door. Wow! He exclaims excitedly. As the lights switch on before him, his gaze pans the room, taking in the volume of the workspace and the voluptuous array of stations, tools, and machinery. The smell of freshly processed integrated circuits fills the air. Look at this! His excitement takes hold as he picks up a clear circuit board. It's a crystalline composite with fiber optic channels. Oh, what an ingenious design. Simi, what are you doing? Seldin asks, as Simon's nanites swarm the component. Copying it, he replies, offering a subtle tap to his temple. Seldin then takes up a piece of the rock-hard, semi-laminate material. What for? Guys, Leon interjects. I hate to break this up, but we really should keep moving. Right, Seldin nods, before looking over at Jasra, who isn't feeling very well. Are you all right? He asks, and she leans against the table, letting out a heavy breath.
It's this place. Time feels out of focus,
she says, and Simon scans the area. Flashes of static fill his eyepiece. Oh, that's unusual, Simon comments, attempting to shake the disturbance from his monocle. That weird energy is messing with my optics. Seldin nods. Your optics, our senses, and it's making her sick, he says. So what do you think it is? Leon asks. I don't know, but I felt it last night when I chased that thing, Seldin replies, and that piques Simon's curiosity. It could be radiation from an early-stage antimatter drive, Simon says. Jasra rubs her head.
Sorry, guys. I'm afraid I won't be much help,
she says, as her head begins to ache. Here, let me. Seldin places a hand to her temple as he peers into her head, taking note of her enlarged pineal gland, the area chiefly responsible for psychic ability. There appears to be some swelling, he says. Simon's face grows to concern. Can you correct it? He asks. I'm trying, but there's nothing physically wrong. It's like there's a chemical imbalance, yet everything's in place, he replies. Jasra giggles.
You're like massaging my brain,
she says, childishly. What did you do? Simon asks. Seldin shrugs. The same effect as laughing gas. It's all I could do. But it won't last, he answers, before checking on her. Jasra, you good?
Super.
She giggles some more. All right then, which way? Seldin asks. She takes a moment to focus.
These doors will take us to the research labs,
she points, and the gang proceeds into the long hallway, which curves, branching off into various corridors. Vroom. There's a sudden whoosh as the generators kick back on. Simon, Seldin looks to him. Sorry, they've switched over to nuclear power. Give me a sec to... An ear-shattering blast devastates the hall in regular quarter-second intervals, throwing the gang off guard as hypersonic bullets whiz by. Almir and Leon dive behind a wall of earth as the rest of the gang quickly follows.
A little warning next time.
Leon shouts, cupping a profuse, bleeding hole in Almir's arm. The young man writhes in agony. I've got it, Seldin says, channeling the ether to mend his wounded comrade.
I'm sorry,
Jasra pleads.
I didn't see them coming. It's worse now,
she claims, grabbing her head.
What the hell is that?
Leon shouts. Rail cannons, Simon answers.
What?
Leon looks to the guardian of technology. Specifically in this case, Simon analyzes the machine, tri-barrel dual-mounted electronic weapons that accelerate a 60 caliber projectile over 7 times the speed of sound. Simi, you good? Seldin asks. Yeah, he replies. Then do something about that mechanized piece of shit, Seldin orders. Simon lightly cracks his neck. You got it, he gladly replies. Peeking around the corner, Simon examines the 8-foot-tall bipedal mechanism armed to its metallic teeth. With his mind on its circuits, he finds himself struggling to gain control. Any time would be great, Seldin shouts. Simon shakes the fog from his mind. I'm getting interference, he says, before flicking his wrist to project his infamous brood of microscopic machines. They swarm the giant piece of hardware like killer bees. At first, the result is nothing. The unknown organic metallic compound is too foreign. In time, however, the nanites begin to gouge the hull, eating away at it like acid. The first mech in the wave of 3 staggers, just as the buzzing cloud dissipates. Simon, Seldin calls out, feeling his buddy's energy drop. The damn thing's leaking some sort of ionized radiation. It's killing my bots, and I can't sense past the hull, Simon pouts, before casting another, much denser swarm. Seldin sighs. That sounds familiar. Almir, any luck with the driver? He looks to him. Almir shakes his head. Sorry, I can't sense past it either. The readout on Simon's monocle flashes with frequent signal failures as he watches his greatest work fall like flies. It's infuriating, and he'll be damned to lose to inferior tech. He grits his teeth while working his few remaining bots deeper into the hull. The mechanical nightmare starts to whine, and Simon grunts. He staggers, falling back behind the barricade as the mech drops to the ground, revealing a hollow cockpit. It was remote, Almir exclaims, looking back as Simon's gray skin returns to human pink. That's it. That's all I've got. Simon pants in exhaustion. Sir, I have a visual, Second Lieutenant Andrews shouts, and everyone turns their eyes toward her monitor. Good, he says. He can clearly see an earthly structure at the far end of the hall, and the remaining 2 mechs firing at it. Can you get an angle behind that thing? The colonel points. Yes, sir. Andrews accesses 2 more cameras, one over the mechs, and the other on the 5 members huddling behind Leon's wall. Do you see what I see, Lieutenant? Mitchell asks. Andrews nods, unable to believe her own eyes. They're children. Pull up sensors, the colonel commands. I guess it's my turn, Seldin says, his voice heard over the monitor. They watch as he stands. For a second, there's a brownout. Lights and screens flicker. Christ, do you see those emissions? Andrews exclaims, slapping a finger to the monitor. Stepping out from around the mound, Seldin's image blurs. My God, Mitchell mutters, watching him casually sidestep the rail cannons. His movements rip the air, shattering it explosively in the narrow hall. Simon, Jasra, Leon, and Almir all huddle close together, tucked behind the dirt, while clasping their ears, shielding themselves from the pulses that occur each time Seldin changes direction or stops abruptly. It's just too much matter, moving too quickly in such a small space. He's hurting them. Unfortunately for his friends, he doesn't realize it. Stop it! Jasra cries out, her shrieks hitting him halfway down the hall. At first, he doesn't understand. Stop what? Seldin halts at hypersonic speed, but it isn't until he looks back at the contorted hall left in his wake that he realizes his error. There is nothing without consequence. He sighs, disappointed in himself for being such a child, and in anger, he clenches a fist. At once, the mech closest to him hits the ground in a crumpled heap. Are you guys all right? He checks his friends, taking a knee behind the barricade before the 3rd mech can take aim. Leon gestures with a thumbs up, while Simon and Almir respond with casual nods, despite wiping blood from their ears. Jasra doesn't say anything. Her head simply hurts too much. The onlookers from the control room are beyond speechless, having never seen such a feat. Make sure you get all this, Colonel Mitchell says to 2nd Lieutenant Andrews, before radioing to Major Pierce, who is remote piloting the mechs. Major, you've got them pinned down. Strike while you can, he commands. Simon waves off Seldin's hand, electing to repair himself, but with his nanite supply less than 1%, he struggles to sustain his power. Frustrated, he sighs, shifting a reluctant gaze to his friend, who is now busy soothing Jasra's headache. The encroaching sound of mechanized feet clapping the floor grabs Simon's attention as warning flashes bombard his monocle. Si, look out! Simon darts to cover, attempting to erect an energy barrier, but his power is too low. The mech's arm punches through without effort, knocking him with a solid hit to his chest. Instantly, Simon's power suit converts the blow into useful energy, and he thrusts his hands forward, kinetically casting the mech aside. On that cue, Seldin fires a beam of ether through the wall into the next room. "Let's go," he helps the others through, before turning to Leon. "Seal it," he shouts. "Damn, where'd they go?" Mitchell exclaims.
Hold on.
Andrew says, as she quickly wraps some keys, cycling through the surveillance grid until she finds the room in question.
There they are. Laboratory 9, subsection 2. Mech assembly room.
She points to the screen.
Where are we?
Almir looks around the room, filled with armatures suspending half sections of beveled chassis and hydraulic limbs. Taking up a segment of what appears to be a railgun, Simon holds it for a moment, feeling the sheer weight. It's dense. Without the aid of his biosuit, he's not even sure he could lift it. "It's an assembly room," Simon replies to Almir, before dropping the piece of equipment to the table. Bam! There's a sudden thud just beyond Leon's wall. "It's coming for us," Leon says. "Jazzy, how you doing?" Seldin asks. She lightly shakes her head.
It's worse. The future is so distorted,"
she says with a groan. "Lee," Seldin looks to him. "You're up. When that thing comes through, I want you to hit it with everything you've got. Everyone else?" He pulls ether into his hand, and then chucks it toward the opposite wall. "Follow me." He takes Jasra's hand. "Wait!" Simon halts, grabbing several large chunks of hull from one of the assembly stations before hurrying behind. The four of them then dart down the long corridor, making their way toward the advanced aeronautics block. Trucking on, Simon does his best to work while in motion, releasing what few nanites he has onto the material. "What are you doing?" Seldin questions. "Upgrading. That thing's armor's made into some pretty interesting stuff. I had a hard time cutting through it. I'm rewriting the nanobot's molecular structure based on the composition of the armor. Of course, this is only a prototype. I won't be able to fully synthesize." "Are you telling me you thought up a new design in under 2 minutes?" Seldin asks with surprise. Simon looks at him sideways with a subtle smirk before graciously welcoming the new batch and the increase in power. Soon, his color fades, returning to that brilliant shade of gray everyone is so fond of. "Hey, Sci," he calls out. "Yeah? You're not going to believe this," he says, stopping to set down the remnants of what he had deconstructed. Seldin stares at the vine-like framework of the chassis and the almost papier-mâché-like texture of the support mesh between the vines. His heart nearly skips a beat. "Suka," he lets out. "What?" Simon questions. Seldin shakes his head. "I knew I'd seen this before," he says, drifting into thought. "Have you? What about this?" Simon accesses his wrist computer, which projects a 3-dimensional holographic image of a funny little molecule. Seldin nods. "In the ship I chased." "Interesting. It's what they're using for metal, but it's not metal. It's some sort of organic compound with metallic properties. I've never seen anything like it before," Simon admits. "Yes, we have," Seldin realizes, pulling Lucy from his pack, and Simon's mouth hangs open, seeing it present in the plant's cellular walls. "Well, I guess that makes your quest for aliens all the more likely, huh?" he says. "This isn't good, Simon. If they're experimenting with Malnar, Earth could be in serious trouble," Seldin says, putting Lucy away. "But wait, you said those polar whatevers were using these," he gestures, "things as some sort of bioweapon. Maybe this is a good thing. It could even the playing field," Simon rebuts. Seldin stares him down. "You've never seen how fast these things take over a world. We've got to find that ship." Hanging back, Leon faces the wall as it rumbles from the other side. Bam! Bang! The mech beats against it, testing for weaknesses. At first it tries knocking through the mound of earth, filling the gap, but it's as solid as granite. With a tablet-like device in hand, Major Pierce deactivates the machine. "Pierce, what are you doing?" the colonel shouts over the radio. "Sir, they've managed to defeat 2 mechs on autopilot. Let's see how they handle the real thing," Pierce replies, while climbing aboard. "Good luck, soldier," Mitchell says. Once inside, Pierce reactivates the device, checks his controls to ensure everything's in order, and then analyzes the side wall. According to his scans, he should be able to punch through relatively easily, and thus, he begins to strike. As the steel-reinforced concrete starts to give way, he drives the unit forward. "Pierce, do you see him?" the colonel asks. "Yes, sir. Thermal scans indicate he's not quite as strong as the other one," he says, feeling gung-ho. Cranking up the mech, Major Pierce readies his mechanical fist, then moves in with a powerful step that launches him and the 2-ton piece of machinery toward Leon. The first strike hits its mark, as does the next, and the one after that, with a forceful uppercut to the teen's jaw, lifting him from the ground and driving him into the ceiling. Falling from the body-shaped hole, Leon hits the floor hard. He wasn't expecting such fluid motion from this clumsy-looking automaton. It takes him a few seconds to shake the stars from his head. Pierce gets close, staring down at the well-built young man, lying face down. Readying the railgun, he takes aim. Bang! Whoosh! The air fills with a cloud of vapor that reconstitutes behind the bionic menace as the Guardian of Earth reforms. Strike, strike, whoosh! Leon delivers 2 good blows, then billows around Pierce, only to solidify and hit him again. He tie kicks the structure's leg, and then throws a left jab and a right hook to the faceplate. Ting, ding, dong! Gah! Leon shouts, turning away to cradle his hand and rub the sting from his knuckles, the special alloy as tough as nails, with a durability he's never tested. Hardly nudging the thing, his hands and shin ring out in soreness. Seeing a moment of weakness, the soldier capitalizes and kicks the kid in the back, causing him to stumble forward. Leon then turns about, rolling with the momentum. Clink, clank, he connects again, before Pierce lines him up for a shot. That loud, inescapable noise punishes his ears as a .60 caliber round punches through his left arm, shoulder, and chest, like a series of dies activating in sequence. The first shot severs his hand below the wrist. Ah! Leon howls. As the second shot tears through his shoulder, his body begins to phase. There's a splash and a spray of water as the third round hits his chest. By then, the Guardian of Earth is in full hydro, with his injuries spilling together like holes in the ocean. In mere seconds, Leon is whole again. He then counterattacks, cooling his liquid body to hit his solid ice. Pierce stands firm against the tide of Leon's onslaught, shaking his head as the hull of the mech chimes like a gong. It's dizzying, but tolerable. His armor holds steady, chipping away at the young man's frozen fists. Realizing it's not working, the Guardian of Earth changes up, morphing into a dense body of rock. Ding! He rattles Pierce, causing him to stumble. At last, he's getting somewhere. Major Pierce maneuvers to regain balance, before swinging a backhand to strike Leon's head. Whoosh! The kid poofs to the ground, planting his hands as he reconstitutes. There's an immense rumble from above when a sudden column of earth crashes down, dropping the Major to his mechanized chest. Major, come in! Major Pierce! Calls the colonel over the comm, getting no response. With the mech cracked open, Leon peers inside. Well, that explains things. He rubs his jaw. Knowing he can't rightfully leave him there, he pulls the unconscious Major from the cockpit before running to catch up with the others. The long hall appears to stretch and twist in Jasra's view. She staggers before giving in to the nauseating throb in her head. Simon turns to catch her. Are you all right? He asks, easing her into a sitting position against the wall. Seldin looks to Almir, gesturing for him to keep an eye on the hall before kneeling to check on her.
It's too much,
she cries. She's getting worse, Sai. Is there anything you can do? Simon asks, and unfortunately, Seldin shakes his head with a lofty sigh. All I can do is dull the pain. I can't stop what's causing it, he laments. Well, do something fast, Simon huffs, and much like before, Seldin reaches a hand to her temple. Soon, Jasra's labored breaths ease, growing steady and deep. Seldin glances to Simon. The swelling in her brain is worse, he says. Caused by that weird energy source? Simon asks, with a puzzled face. But that doesn't make sense. Why is she the only one sick? Almir chimes in, looking back. Simon points to Seldin. You said something before about a chemical imbalance, he says. Yeah, but everything's there. Seldin throws up a hand in frustration, before looking into her again, seeing no difference. Wait, you're basing that off of what a normal person needs, right? What do we need? More specifically, what does she need that we don't? Seldin looks up in thought. The ether is a little stale, he comments. Almir gestures with an open hand. Well, maybe it's not just ether. She can see through time, right? Isn't there a particle for that? Tachyons! Simon then scans the compound. Shit, Sai, he's right. There's hardly any in here. She's going through withdrawal, Seldin realizes. Simon's eyes wander in their sockets, looking without direction, as he thinks about the situation. The weird radiation? He asks. Possibly. If they're experimenting with matter-antimatter reactions, then it's conceivable the natural flow of tachyon particles is being disrupted. Seldin speculates, just as the sound of hasty footsteps echoes down the hall. Hey guys, Leon calls out. You made it. Almir smiles at his mentor. Yeah, that guy was... Everything all right? Leon asks, catching sight of the situation. For now, Seldin says, as he and Simon help Jasra to her feet. All right, Jazzy, can you see? Seldin asks. Jasra shakes her head.
No, the future is still very fuzzy,
she says. But then, Simon has an idea. Your sight gets worse the closer we get, right? He asks, and she nods. Then why not use her as a detector? Seldin's eyes shift, and then Jasra puts in her 2 cents.
Wow, you guys are really caring.
No, he's right. We can use your disadvantage to our advantage. Try focusing on where we need to go, and aim us in the direction that hurts the most, Seldin says.
Oh no, I am not liking,
she complains, already feeling uncomfortable again. Stepping in front of her, Seldin looks into her eyes. I'll do my best to alleviate the bulk of the pain, all right? Just feel it enough to guide us, he insists.
Okay,
she replies, as he takes her hand. Leon leads, while Almir covers the rear. Simon, Jasra, and Seldin stay centered, with Simon holding her up, and Seldin easing the pain. She moans, closing her achy eyes. Hun? Simon seems concerned.
We're close.
She says, and they continue, crossing another 100 yards or so of the subterranean maze.
Turn left.
She winces, and they take the corner.
Fire!
An officer commands. Tink tink ping tink. Bullets spray their way.
It's an ambush!
Leon turns from the squad, pushing his friends back against the wall. Move. Seldin scoots around Leon before asking, Jasra, you alright? She nods.
Yes, there's a hangar around the corner. But I can't see any farther.
She says. The strange energy emanating from within the hangar distorts Seldin's senses. He struggles in his mind's eye to make out the obscured signals of the soldiers guarding the large circular door. There's 6. He counts with clenched eyes before looking back. Almir? No, wait. Simon takes the lead. There's something I want to try, he says, while cracking his knuckles and back, as if a warm-up is necessary, before casting a cloud of nanites, which soon grows darker and denser. The others watch as a familiar, frightening form takes shape. You, couldn't have done this sooner, huh? He questions, examining the mech. Simon lightly scratches his head. I only recently acquired the necessary materials, he retorts, and Seldin gestures for him to proceed. Simon then turns his gaze toward his creation, and in his mind, he can see what it sees, connected through his machines. The automaton moves forward, then takes that left, listening to Simon's intuitive instructions.
Colonel, are you seeing this?
Andrews points out, stunned by what's on the monitor. Deacons, they have a mech, the colonel shouts. I'm on it, he replies, loading a grenade round into his tactical rifle before ordering his squad to lay down suppressing fire. Captain Deaconson takes position, sighting in on the monster's machine as their rounds bounce off the hull. Floomp. Boom! The grenade hits center mass, with an explosion wrapping around the corner. Jasra and the others yell out, as Seldin deflects the enveloping force away from them. Clank, thud, clink. The mech marches out from the smoke, bearing only minor damage. Brrrr. It opens fire immediately. Deacons and his squad divide. That doesn't sound like a rail cannon, Seldin comments. Simon chuckles, hearing the screams of the soldiers. Twin BB guns. I figured you didn't want casualties, he remarks. Kaboom! Another grenade hits, blowing out the mech's left hip. Yeah! Deacon shouts. Damn, it's down, Simon says. Can you fix it? Seldin asks. Working on it, he replies, tapping the static from his monocle. Watching the fiasco over the monitor, Colonel Mitchell offers Deacon some praise. Good work, soldier. Now finish them, he orders. You got it. He readies his rifle. Taking over the bot's automated systems, Simon brings it back to its feet, then takes aim, firing on the troops. I'm hit! They shout out, being pelted with BBs. Unaware of the lack of danger, they gather their fallen and huddle toward the large, circular door. Launching a smoke grenade, Deacons takes advantage of the cover and then accesses the control panel for the door. Without a clear shot, Simon sprays and prays until a sudden change in pressure causes the smoke to billow, spilling into the next room. A rush comes over him, and his eyes widen. Shit, they're getting away! He and the others dart around the corner, coming up on the rapidly closing door. There's a suctioning sound and a clank as it seals shut. Damn! Leon shouts, smacking the face of its solid surface. I've got it, Seldin says, while channeling Aether into the door. Simon steps up behind him, resting a hand on his shoulder. Aren't you forgetting something? He asks. Seldin shrugs with a halfway glance. Guardian of technology, remember? Simon winks, and Seldin concedes, stepping away to check on Jasra. How are you holding up? He asks.
Not so hot,
she replies, resting her head against his chest. On the other side of the door is the Holy Grail, the sphere, centered on a landing platform in the middle of a circular room, and overlooking a long launch tunnel, lined with yellow and white caution stripes. Captain Deacons knows he has little time before they come through that door. Assessing the situation, he checks his men. Are you hit? He asks Private Winters and Corporal LeFay, who are down cradling wounds. The corporal lifts a hand, revealing a relatively small, though bleeding hole in his right bicep. I'm not sure how bad, he replies, and Winters has similar injuries to his thigh. Can you walk? Asks the major. It hurts to put pressure on it, he replies. All right, you and you. Deacons points to Ortiz and Matthews, who are among the 4 still able to stand. I need you 2 to take flanking positions on the catwalk above the door. He then looks to Privates Brody and O'Brien. Help LeFay and Winters to a safe spot, and then cover me long enough to launch the sphere, he orders, before manning the computer station to the right of the launch pad. Hey, Leon whispers to Almir. Get ready. He gestures with a tilt of his head toward the door as it begins to open. Almir gets into position, just as Seldin and Jasra separate. Retaking control of the mech, Simon moves it forward, just in front of Seldin, who scans the newly available area just beyond the door, searching through the radiation for the faint auras of the soldiers. Using Simon's toy as a shield, the group lets it take the brunt of the assault as they enter. Seldin steps around it, firing a stream of energy to the man on the upper left catwalk, while Amir handles the guard to the right. As the bot enters the room, the rest step inside behind it. Leon then focuses Aether into the ground, shaking the floor. As the other two soldiers lose their footing, Simon jumps with a flying kick to the one, and then lands, sweeping the other.
You'll never get your hands on it!
Deacons yells at the top of his lungs, and the group snaps their gaze to him as he hits the launch button. The bay doors rumble loudly as they open.
Shit, there it goes!
Simon points as the sphere zooms off, up and out the tunnel. Immediately, Seldin hurries after it. His expedited takeoff shatters the air.
Boom!
The others flinch in that instant, and then Simon gazes up the tunnel.
Boom!
There he goes.
Boom, boom, boom!
Leon, Almir, and Jasra take flight after them, zipping out into the desert sky as quickly as they can muster, or as quickly as she can muster, for Jasra isn't nearly as fast as them. Leon soon realizes that even he can't catch up. He stops in midair, panting with labored breaths, while watching the remnants of their trails in the distance.
Jesus, they're fast,
he says.
Yep.
Jasra nods tiredly, though feeling much better, now in the open air.
Don't worry, they'll be back,
she assures him. At over 3,000 miles per hour, Simon is having a difficult time keeping up. He's not even close to riding his friend's coattails. To make matters worse, the ship can take corners on a dime, changing direction almost instantly without losing speed, creating G-forces that would crush any ordinary pilot. He wonders then how it can do it. Moreover, how he can do it. Seldin is flying at over Mach 7, he calculates. That blows his mind, for overcoming the frictional forces alone is challenging enough. If it weren't for his nanites and specialized suit, he would have burned up a while ago. Gutting it out, Simon directs his brood to collect just under his skin to act as a heat shield for areas that are unprotected by his biosuit, namely his face. He then pushes forward, doing his best to catch up to Seldin's speed without being torn apart. Maybe I can convert the friction to energy, he considers, given the design parameters of the suit. Sharp left!
Oh shit!
Simon exclaims, barely making the course change and nearly crashing as Seldin and the sphere alter their heading without hesitation. Through his mind's eye, Seldin focuses intently on the craft, wondering what's inside, but like before, he's unable to get past the interference. It doesn't matter. He shakes the effort, ready to grab it, when a sudden presence from behind gets his attention. It's Simon, he realizes with a glance over his shoulder. Damn. He eases up, sandbagging, for he almost had it. Simon, can you sense anything? He yells. It's not completely solid, Simon remarks, pulling up beside him. Obviously, but I can't see inside. Can you? Seldin yells. No, but I think I can gain access Jedi style, he answers, and Seldin makes a face. Exhaust port! Simon gestures, concentrating a stream of nanites toward the craft. The little robots trace over the surface of the sphere, working their way along the peaks and valleys of the textured hull until coming into a small fissure only a few microns across. Error messages fill Simon's visor. Mother, he huffs, and Seldin looks over. What's the matter? He asks. It's the radiation. Whatever's spilling out is depolarizing their circuits, Simon explains. Are you saying you can't do it? He asks. Simon's head snaps his way. I've got a few ideas left. I'm going to use the nanites to construct an antenna through the exhaust port. That should give me a direct link, he says, instructing the bots to gather, forming a tight cylinder of nanite layers wrapped around a nanite core. As the outer layers die and become inert, they provide insulation, protecting the center line from decay. Flash after flash, Simon watches in hope as thousands of signals fade, with each new link being added to the chain. Come on, he focuses, telling them to move deeper into the ship. The signals they send back are distorted, but it's a picture nonetheless. I'm in, Simon says with excitement. No pilot, but there is a cockpit and a touchscreen console. Enough of the details, just shut it down, Seldin exclaims. Simon clamps shut, tilts his head just a little as he focuses, and then... The engines power down, leaving the craft at gravity's mercy. Tink, clank, it scrapes the mountainside before plunging into the dry, desert sand. Nice! Seldin grins as he and Simon touch down through the plume of smoke and sand. Simon offers a smirk. Thanks. How do you fly so fast without burning up? He asks, looking down into the shallow crater as they approach the ship. With the engines powered off, the radiation has decreased, but there's still the matter of getting through the hull. It's simple, Seldin says, as he slams a high-powered fist into the skin of the sphere. I pushed the air ahead of me out of the way. I learned it from you, actually. He works his hands into the hull. You used to, Seldin grunts, while gradually adding more and more energy to his muscles as he pries. Do that back when you drag raced, to make your car faster. An ingenious, no drag, no friction technique. Simon shakes his head, having forgotten about all those years ago. I can't believe you remembered that, he says, while offering a hand as they tear the vessel open, revealing an empty cockpit. The craft is just as round inside as out, with a seat designed to conform to the shape of the pilot, and a single console positioned in front. The inner walls are smooth, acting like a screen, with a 360-degree view. Simon couldn't be happier, having access to all this new tech, but soon his delight grows to extreme discomfort as the core of the ship is exposed. The two of them back away almost immediately.
Ugh.
Simon groans, feeling nauseous.
Yeah, no kidding.
Seldin agrees.
That's one hell of a drive system, Sci. I'm pretty sure that's antimatter.
Simon says, despite his distorted scans of the unit beneath the seat.
Antimatter is necessary for anti-gravity propulsion, but look at that energy.
Seldin tries to maintain focus on the weird wispy strings dancing about the core.
That's not ether,
he says, with a cautious approach, reaching for the handle of the container. It's hot, getting hotter. His fingers start to burn, with a tingling sensation trailing up the length of his arm as he gets closer.
Ah!
He jumps back, cradling his arm, and feeling real pain for the first time in days. You all right? Simon rushes over. Although confused by the experience, Seldin nods.
Apparently, whatever that is disrupts the flow of ether,
he responds, his hand still shaking.
But isn't antimatter made up of ether?
Simon questions as he scans again, and Seldin's eyes wander with his thoughts.
It's not the antimatter.
It's what it's giving off, a byproduct of the reaction, Seldin replies. Simon's jaw hangs open.
Anti-ether?
We've got to tell the others. Seldin turns, but Simon's eyes catch a flicker.
Wait,
there's a blinking icon on the ship's monitor.
It's a distress signal,
Simon says. From Groom Lake? Seldin asks.
No,
Simon shakes his head.
It's coming from some place in the southern hemisphere,
he replies, reading the coordinates. I think it's time we ask a direct question, Seldin states. Away from the debilitating effects of the radiation, Jasra is able to see much clearer. She rests, hovering calmly with her eyes closed, despite the echoing cadence of 100 or so soldiers marching on the ground below. Almir's eyes shift to his mentor, looking for guidance, as the troops form up in a semicircle with weapons trained to the sky. Leon then glances to Jasra with equal concern. He doesn't want to show his hand, but he can't help but feel nervous with so many barrels aimed their way.
You, wouldn't want to perhaps open your eyes?
Leon asks. She doesn't, for her gift works better this way.
Don't worry, they won't fire without a reason,
Jasra assures him. Almir quickly looks over. Toppling their base isn't...
Sci's back,
she interrupts.
Is he?
Leon scans about, and then hears a roaring sound, like a fighter jet approaching.
You in the sky, you're surrounded!
Shouts a voice from below. Almir looks past Leon to Jasra. Should I put them out? He asks, bringing a finger to his temple, just as Seldin and Simon whiz by. The voice of the Guardian of Life enters them all, and they follow just as quickly. Simon and Seldin hit the ground hard, touching down at the heart of the formation, while taking their landing a little too seriously. The suddenness of their actions startles the men, causing them to open fire. At first, they all flinch, except for Seldin and Jasra, as the rifles discharge, spewing wave after wave of bullets in their direction. But as those projectiles grow nearer and nearer, they begin to move slower and slower. Simon, Almir, and Leon look on with amazement while coming out of their cringing postures. Seldin, on the other hand, merely offers a smiling gaze back toward Jasra. Is this you? He asks, astonished by her precision. Everything beyond the forward wall of unnecessarily slow-moving bullets appears to be in normal time, while the Guardians seem to be in a small pocket of accelerated time, with Jasra at the epicenter. She nods at Seldin's question, while holding back a playful smile. Can you stop them indefinitely? Simon asks curiously.
Well, that depends.
Jasra gestures.
Everything takes energy. It's easier to affect relative time than actual time,
she answers. What's the difference? Leon asks.
Well, relative to us, those bullets are frozen, but from the bullet's frame of reference, we're moving really fast. However, if I were to just move them to a point where they rust to dust, that would be a permanent change,
she explains. And more costly, Seldin comments, and Jasra nods. What about time travel? Simon asks.
I'm still Don't!
She tries to warn Seldin as he playfully plucks a round from the air. Though frozen to him, it still retains all of its force, and the moment his fingers wrap around the copper jacket, he jumps back, flinging the bullet, which drifts to a halt. Fascinating, he comments with intrigue, while rubbing the split from his fingertips. As the battalion's rifles click to empty, Seldin snaps back to attention. I am the Guardian of Life, he begins, but the soldiers offer no response. He then pauses with a glance back to Jasra. Can they hear me? He asks.
Oh, sorry.
Jasra laughs.
If they can, you probably sound like a chipmunk on acid,
she answers, adjusting the temporal field, before nodding to him. Seldin starts again. We are the Guardians. Who's in charge? He asks in a commanding voice, to the astonished faces gawking at the feet before them. Then, from behind the crowd, comes an answer. I am, Colonel Mitchell responds in an equally commanding tone as he approaches. And you have just committed an act of war on this country. Colonel, Seldin moves forward, telekinetically dividing the wall of bullets to clear himself a path. This facility is experimenting with a technology not of this world, and I would like to know the source, he demands. Mitchell laughs. I'm under no obligation to answer you, boy, he says. Holding his confidence, Seldin steps closer to the officer. Colonel, the materials you possess come from a system 9 light-years away. Not long ago, it was conquered by a militant race known as the Pulsari, who were on their way here, he says, averting his eyes. Colonel Mitchell thinks for a moment before looking at Seldin. I don't trust you, he says. Fair, Seldin begins. But consider this. Not much remains of the world I tried to save. I lost against the Pulsari. Almir whispers to Leon, what's he talking about? But Leon just shrugs in uncertainty. And if this test here today is any measure of Earth's defenses, Seldin pauses. Are you willing to stand alone? He glances to his friends. Because I'm not. Right then, Jasra gets a mental flash.
Sai, watch out!
She warns, just before.
Gah!
A piercing screech enters Seldin's mind, like needles stabbing his brain. He drops to his knees as images of a subterranean labyrinth overtake his vision. Seizing the opportunity, Colonel Mitchell gives the order. Arrest them! He points, when unexpectedly, all weapons train on him.
Almir!
Seldin shouts as Jasra, Simon, and Leon help him to his feet.
Release the
He drops down again, seeing phantom flashes of a leafy woman, while hearing the muddled screams of a dying soldier.
Bonai? Here?
Seldin shudders at the possibility of spore drones.
Boom!
He launches, knocking everyone near him to the ground. It doesn't take long, however, for the other Guardians to give chase.
Sai, what the hell's going on?
Simon's call reaches him intuitively, despite the distance and the speed, but Seldin's focus is elsewhere. The very idea his Suka friend could be on Earth, and worse, fighting Malnar, sends chills down his spine. He must go faster, he thinks, as Lucy moves from his backpack and takes root. Follow through the gates, Seldin projects to Simon, before zooming out of sight.